Hey, everybody. Hey, hello, I'm Steven. This is Katherine. Katherine, you can say hi.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
so
everybody.
we're just a few minutes before 8 o'clock right now. And so we went ahead and we're going live. And as you guys are hopping on, let us know who you are. Just say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. And we'll try to make this as interactive as possible. We even have a few we call them like hosts that will be in the chat thread to interact with you just in case Katherine and I are having such a good discussion that we miss something that you say. So, Katherine, since it's like just a few minutes before 8 o'clock, why don't we do just like a fun little get to know you so people can get to hear you
Okay.
before we talk a little bit about mental health, okay? Okay, so let me ask you the first one. I feel like I know the answer to this one, but I'm not sure. Coke or Pepsi?
I hate to admit it, but I like Pepsi. I am more of a
Wow.
girl. I
Okay.
hate to admit that I even like soda because I know it's really bad, and I tell kids all the time they shouldn't drink it. But I do like a little diet Pepsi with lime if I'm, honest, once in a while.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Mhm.
I was gonna guess that you didn't drink soda, so that's
I
all.
do. Yeah, I don't let my kids drink it, but I drink it.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Okay, what about favorite season of the year?
I am a winter girl. I love winter. I grew up in Maine, in the woods of
Nice.
Maine, and I like to ski and I don't know, I like the winter. So
Wow.
it was disappointing this year. We didn't have a lot of
Yeah,
snow,
really didn't.
so
Wow.
I don't like snow in May. We had snow in May this year. I don't like
Wow.
that. But for the most part, I love a good, solid, stormy winter.
That's
Hmm.
awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys, as you're tuning in, come and say hi. We're going to start in probably like 1 or 2 minutes. We always like to give people a chance to hop in, get situated. I know tech stuff can be an issue. We had a little bit of a tech stuff on our
Hmm.
end here. So we're giving you guys a chance to hop in. We'll start with all the good, meaty content in just a few minutes. So in the meantime, say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm just asking Katherine some questions, and then we'll start probably in about 90 seconds. Okay, Katherine, I feel like I know the answer to this one because you just said it, but beach or mountains?
Mm. I would say mountains, definitely
Yeah,
mountains.
yeah,
I like mountains. Yeah, I'm more of a lake mountains girl. I do like the beach. Who doesn't
yeah.
like the beach? But I'm a redhead, and growing up, the
Yeah,
beach has some problems, some risks.
yeah.
So yeah, I prefer skiing and hiking.
That's all. Yeah, I mean, as you know, my wife Katie has the same shade of
Yeah.
hair as you, and she also prefers to go north over south. So that makes a
Yep.
lot of sense. Okay, let me ask
Mhm.
one more, and then we're gonna get into the good stuff here. If you could take a dream vacation anywhere that you've never been before, where would you go?
Oh, that's hard. I love traveling.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would probably choose Vietnam. I've always wanted to
Oh,
go.
wow.
I know. I love
That's awesome.
Southeast Asia. My brother used to live in Cambodia. He works for
Okay.
World Vision. And so I've
Wow.
been to Cambodia and Southeast Asia, but I never made it to Vietnam. And from what I hear, it's incredible. And it's so
Wow.
hard to get to because it's so far. But someday I'm going to go back to that area and go back to and check out Vietnam.
That's
So that's,
awesome.
yeah,
Right on.
yeah,
Well, why
there
don't
you go.
we Yeah, it's like 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Hey, as you guys are
Okay.
coming in, I'm seeing people on the chat thread saying hey, saying where they're from. Just let us know where you're tuning in from. We always think it's cool to be able to see just the diversity of the number of people watching. I'm going to do a quick intro so that you guys know who we are and what we're doing. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it later on and catching up on the content. I am very, very excited. We are going to pack a lot of really good content in just a short amount of time. So my name is Steven. I'm a pastor at Grace Church in West Bridgewater, Mass. And Katherine and I know each other. We've known each other for about 3 years now. My wife, Katie, and her are friends. And then my two daughters, Hazel and Holly, who are four. Actually, Hazel turns 5 today. Today's her
Oh,
birthday.
yay. Happy
Isn't that awesome?
birthday. Oh, that's awesome. Five
Yeah.
is the best. I love 5-year-olds.
So they know Katherine in a lot of ways. She's in our life group, but they also know her as one of their pediatricians. And so let me share a little bit about Katherine, then I'll let you share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just hop right into the questions. That work?
Okay, that sounds
Awesome.
great.
And
Sounds
and
fun.
And I'm saying hey to all the people in the chat thread as you're coming in. Like I said already a few times, but say hey, let us know who you are. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, we'll try to field as many of them as we can. We have a bunch of good questions that people have already asked. And then we also have a host that's interacting. So, okay, Katherine, I want to make sure if I get any of this right, feel free to correct me. So
okay.
you've been in the medical field for 19 years. You're a nurse practitioner, right?
Yep.
Now, has all of that been in the Bridgewater area?
Yeah, I graduated from BC, and my first job out of my training was working at Bridgewater Pediatrics with Fred Kern when he was opening his practice. So yeah, I was like 6 years old at the time, very young. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
But yeah, so yep, I've been practicing medicine at Bridgewater Pediatrics for almost 20 years. So.
And then that also leads to your second endeavor, which shares a building, The Well. Can you share a little bit, just maybe like a 30 second to 1 minute bio of how old The Well is, and just let us know why you decided to start it and what it is.
Yeah, so well, The Well's coming up on our 10-year anniversary, which is really awesome. Yep. And yeah, started The Well way back. So I have an interest in adolescent medicine and mental health and psychiatry. And that's always been sort of my interest. I work in primary care, but I love that. And so years ago, really struggled with finding good places to send kids and families who have mental health issues, and particularly people who are interested in exploring sort of a holistic model to mind, body, spirit, spirituality, faith, things like that, and wanting to practice good medicine and good psychiatry and good therapy in the context of addressing spiritual needs too. So actually had a dream 3 nights in a row that I really believe was a dream from God about a place that had a name, The Well, a center for hope and healing. And it was really a place where people would encounter God and good care and be loved. And so what we offer is a wide variety of therapies and services that address the needs of the mind, body, spirit. So yeah,
awesome.
Coming up on 10 years.
Awesome. Well, let's we're gonna hop into some questions. I'm excited about this because Katherine has become a good friend over the past several years. She and I are in a small group together. Her husband Carl and I are friends, and she has the 3 sweetest daughters in Bridgewater with Ava, Mahalia, and Willow, and it's just so fun to see them. Sometimes they'll walk right by our house because we live right down the street from each other. So this will be a sweet, sweet time. Let me just hop into the first one. And hey, if you're watching, whether it's live or later, I really encourage you guys to take some notes. I'm actually going to take some notes on my phone, so I'm not just bored and texting. I really want to dive in on some of this content as well, because I think there's going to be something in here for all of us to hear. Just let's start general. What are some general thoughts, Katherine, on mental health that we should be aware of or keep in mind right now in this season?
Well, I mean, this is a tough season for everyone, right? Oh, no, I lost you. Are you there? I think I lost you again. Oh, you're there. Okay, good. I thought we went out. Sorry about that.
No,
okay,
we're good.
I thought we were having technology issues because I can't see you, but I'm going to keep going.
No, you're good.
Okay, good. So yeah, I mean, I think this is an incredibly tough time on everyone. Everyone has been affected by COVID-19 in many ways. And there's so many layers to this that have affected people, the obvious being the medical concerns and understanding the medical science behind COVID-19, the economic implications for people, employment issues. But I think not to be underestimated, a huge layer of this that is unfolding in our reality is that COVID-19 is causing what I read this weekend, an article through the BBC I read this weekend, they're calling it a tsunami of mental health issues across the world. I think the number of mental health issues and cases that have developed as a result of COVID-19 are staggering. And I think there's obvious reasons for that. I mean, people who already carry a mental health diagnosis, who, maybe before this, had a treatment team of a therapist, a psychiatrist, a support group, friends and family around them to support them through what's already a very challenging diagnosis at times. For many people, those supports haven't been available, or if they're, if they are available, they're in a different format. I have kids, who attend day programs for eating disorders and are now doing those virtually, and it doesn't feel the same. So there's a variety of changes in the services that have been available for people who already are in that network. And then additionally, even if you're someone who hasn't ever been diagnosed with a mental health disease, you are probably, we're seeing so many cases of people who are just experiencing heightened levels of anxiety, depression, substance abuse issues, mood disorders and things, as a result of what they're experiencing. And so I think, we're starting to see, there was a little bit of a lull where, I think people weren't accessing care or weren't talking about how they were feeling. But I do think that we are starting to see a huge volume of people that are expressing needs that are within the mental health realm.
Okay. And so can you help us to understand, this could be some people that are listening, this could be people that have family members or friends. What are just some of the common warning signs, early signs, common, even maybe some of the triggers that might lead to an unhealthy mental state or depression, anxiety? Can you just help us to see what comes before?
Well, I think it's important to understand why, why this is happening, what are the triggers. And I think when we're thinking about ourselves or our loved ones or people within our communities that we know and we care about, it's important to understand, what might be triggering this. And first and foremost, there's been an incredible amount of change that has happened very quickly and at such a rapid rate. And so for so many people experiencing change, across so many levels, it can be traumatic. When you've lost your job and you've lost people you care about and you've lost your schedule and your routine or whatever, for many people, this is actually a type of trauma. And I think to recognize that when you go through anything traumatic, it can actually affect the way that your brain works. And, I think that when our brain is experiencing extreme amounts of stress, we don't always think clearly. A lot of people are describing this feeling like a foggy brain. Like I'm not thinking straight, or I can't focus, or, things are I'm exhausted all the time and I don't know why. And that really has to do with the fact that there's extreme amounts of stress that can affect the way that your brain works, the way you focus and deal with things. I think also, people are being oversaturated with a whole bunch of negative information, the media, the news, people are just, when you're overwhelmed with so much negative information all the time, again, it affects the way we think and the way we start to perceive things. What's interesting is our brain has a natural way of trying to understand and sort of put things into space that makes sense, and brings our brains to a place of calmness. And so our logical brain is trying to understand information that we can take in that helps us to be okay. And so we're trying to regulate ourselves. And the truth is, there's been so much information out there that has been conflicting and confusing and scary that it's really exhausting for people to try to process all this type of information and try to figure out what's true and what's not true, what's fact and what's not fact. And so I think that can really create heightened levels of anxiety and fatigue and all of that. Of course, people are dealing with lots of new stressors, as I mentioned before, loss of job, financial security, those types of things. And then we're seeing a lot of people who are dealing with issues of safety, violence in their homes, and we can talk about that. But I think, these types of situations, as I said, have contributed to a huge volume of need. And so we want people to be very understanding of that and be aware of it, and to be sort of looking out for the people in our lives that we feel responsible for, whether it's our kids, our parents, our neighbors, our church, life groups, and be looking for signs that people aren't okay. And I think those signs, as you asked me, I would say if you have people who are, secluded and isolated, and they're not reaching out and they're not connecting, that to me would be a concern. If you haven't heard from someone in a while, or, they're not answering their phone, or they don't want to connect. That would be concerning. I think if your loved ones are feeling hopeless, I think we've all felt feelings of hopelessness, and there's days that feel worse than others. But if you see a trend of people who are saying, I just don't see a solution out of this, I don't think it's ever going to get better. I don't think it's even, it's ever going to be different. That's a concern. I think people who just see only negative and can only express negative mindsets, that would be kind of a warning sign. People who aren't sleeping. Sleep is a huge part of, our overall mental health. And so when your friends or loved ones tell you they haven't slept in days, that's a concern. Heightened irritability, agitation, paranoia, those things, if you're seeing those signs, I think it's important to get some help.
I'm going to just recap a few of the things you said that really resonated with me. Some of the triggers for us to look out for. Well, you said heightened change and stress, which, I mean, for some of us, there's never been more change and stress in a short amount of time in our entire lives. So we know that is almost coming with the territory, and it's so important that we learn how to navigate that. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but I want to make sure people didn't miss those. And I think a big one that you said was the heightened amount of information that we're taking in all at once. And whether you're watching live or whether you're watching later, I think that's a really good mental note. There is no coincidence. It is more than just a correlation that as we have been in the social media era in the past 10 years, and we are attached to smartphones that are constantly giving us opinions and sources and news, that we are also seeing record levels of stress and anxiety and depression. All of the things that you're dealing with on a daily and on a weekly basis, we're seeing that those two absolutely go hand in hand. So for some of us, it really, just the art of unplugging is going to scale a little bit of that. And you're going to share a little bit of that in just a minute. But to me, I hear that and I think it makes so much sense, because we're trying to figure out what's true in all that is happening, but there's conflicting sources on every single topic within this thing, right? I mean, we
talk about it. I mean, we talk about the effects of information overload outside of this all the time. And, when you're taking your phone and you're doing this and you're scrolling, like every piece of information is going in through your eyes, into your brain, and it's trying to find a spot in your brain to attach so that you can process it. So it's exhausting. I like pictures, and I picture it like a rat or a hamster on a wheel running, and your brain is constantly running to try to keep up with all the information that's rapidly going in. And, it's a lot of work to process screen information anyway. And now you add negative screen information that is scary or worrisome, and you're trying to process that. It's exhausting, and it makes people feel very exhausted.
And some of the irony of it is, it seems that for a lot of us, when we're trying to unplug and trying to disengage, we actually go to social media in hopes of unplugging, in hopes of disengaging, of hopes of kind of just taking a breather. And in return, by us, we're taking a rest in hopes to recharge, and we're going to the places that are actually causing us draining and stressful thoughts, right? I mean, we're seeing, in fact, if you're in the chat thread, if you feel like you don't go on social media enough, let us know, because I feel like the rest of us know exactly. Like when we hear this, we're like, I need to cut back on it. It's an addicting habit, right?
It's addicting. And I think right now, especially, it can be very toxic. And there's so much,
toxic.
Yeah, like just negativity, and we all process stuff differently. What's amazing about people is we're all so different. So we can feel very passionately about something and we post it in good intentions, but someone else sees it very differently, and then they post something, and all of a sudden you're feeling this negative vibe that makes you feel insecure or bad, and you're trying to, and it's just, it's a lot. And then there's a lot of things out there that are very seductive in terms of they seem true and they seem like a good story, and I want to believe it, but then other people are saying it's not true. So it creates a lot of, like I said, and, just toxicity that is leads people downward. And, I know for me, I go on the news sometimes looking, because I want to find good news. I want to find something that's going to bring my brain to calm and help me feel more positive. And, as we all know, the best media, bad news sells and fear news sells. And, so
right.
the headlines are naturally going to be negative. So we just have to find a balance between gathering information and not getting too much of it.
Absolutely. I think one of the themes that I've had to continue to be reminded of just in the past few years is that we mirror emotion. And so if we're constantly around negative sources of information, it causes us to be negative, and it actually reproduces negativity through us. And so I think that before we move on to the next question, I just want all of us to just make a mental note and just ask ourselves, the things that we're taking in, are they helping us to produce a more positive outlook and a healthier mindset, or are they actually adding to the problem? Because I think for some of us, we're actually self-inflicting some of the things unintentionally. So I want to piggyback on that. Could you shared for some that are struggling, some of the common symptoms: not connecting, disengaging, hopelessness, negative mindset, sleeplessness, paranoia. If we're seeing some of this in our own lives or in a family member or somebody we love, can you share some of the strategies? We've already talked a little bit about the online engagement. Can you share some of the strategies or the methods that we can use to help lower our anxiety levels?
Yeah. I think, the first thing, and I'm talking to teenagers all day long, so I think, I'm like hitting repeat, but I think that this is super important. I just think, I'm stressing routine. We need to stick to a routine. And I think, the initial phase of this whole thing was, felt like, at least, and, I deal with kids, so I'm kind of talking from kid perspective, but for a lot of people who are, also all of a sudden working from home, and it kind of felt like, oh, this is a vacation, the schedule's off, and we can kind of stay up late and sleep in. But I think really our bodies, our physical selves and our mental selves, we thrive with routine and regularity and consistency. So, I think it's really important to try to go to bed at the same time every night, try to get up at the same time every day, try to get 9 to 10 hours of sleep, and try to be awake with the sun and sleep when the sun goes down. So, kids and adults who are up all night and sleeping through the day, they're really missing out on opportunities to absorb vitamin D and sunlight, which can be very helpful and helping to just lift your mood. I mean, we know that, sunny days, people tend to be happier, right? Rainy days and cloudy days, there's less of that. So we want to take advantage of what is natural, which is to get up, get dressed, take a shower, and stick to 3 meals a day. Those types of things, they seem so basic, but having a plan and a routine for each day really can help you. A lot of people feel better if they've been productive in some level. So sticking to a routine, I think, is very important. Along with that, like I said, getting outside and exercising, the outside experience right now is vital. And I think forcing yourself to get dressed, get outside. When we're outside, if you go for a walk, you're probably going to see people, which is a good thing. Having some normalcy to seeing humans out there, seeing your neighbors, being able to have a short, conversation maybe across the sidewalk, is important, and I think feels good. And so getting outside and absorbing that vitamin D and exercising, 30 minutes a day of physical activity taps into good stuff in your brain, like endorphins, that are your body's natural way of fighting off, depression and anxiety. So those things are important. I think it's important to be compassionate to yourself right now. I keep saying this is a time of, self-care, not self-improvement. I think a lot of people have taken this time and they think, I really should, I should clean the attic and I should organize my basement and I think I should get all this stuff done. And I think it's important to keep in mind, like we were talking about before, that we're exhausted. This process, while we might not be doing a lot, is very exhausting. And so not putting that extra pressure on yourself to accomplish too much or accomplish new things. We often say do things that are inviting. So things that feel good to you. If it's inviting to you, engage in it. If cleaning your basement and getting something done feels inviting, do it. But if it feels like a big project that is overwhelming and going to take you to a feeling of negativity, don't do it. So, being compassionate towards yourself and to others, I think is important. We need that, and to recognize that it's a hard time. So you have to do what feels good in terms of, self-care. I think, some other things that I tend to, to really value is this is a time to cultivate your faith and your faith practices. I think that for many people, our faith and our spiritual beliefs are the foundations from which we live during times of uncertainty. And during times of uncertainty, oftentimes we can spiral downward to a place of fear and being overwhelmed. And, I really believe that during these times, it is our faith that actually provides a foundation from going too far down. It's a time where we really have to ask ourselves, what do we believe in terms of our faith, and how do we press into that, and what's going to feed that? Who are the people in my life that are going to remind me of the truth that I believe, and I believe so strongly. And so I think connecting with people of faith, for me, I value the scriptures, the Bible, and it brings me great comfort to read truth, because I tend to be a thinker and an analytical person, and sometimes I can overthink things too much. And so I go back to things that are very true in my life, and I receive that. And I think this is a time for that. If you're not somebody who has a religious belief, necessarily, I still think we are spiritual beings. And so exploring your spirituality, practicing things like mindfulness, getting outside and, being aware of the birds and the trees and the sun, and recognizing that the world is much bigger than ourselves. These things, I think, really help us to put things into an important perspective that is important to keep in mind. So those are some things. I think, like I said, I'm a huge fan of like gratitude journals, writing things down every day that you're thankful for and that are good in your life, both today and in the past. What are the times in your life that have been hard, and what was good in that? And I think we can all, even in the hardest of situations and the saddest of times, can find good in it, and I think that's the part that brings us, the strength to get through hard things. So, and then I think the last thing I would say is to allow yourself to feel. So many people don't want to feel their feelings, and and don't want to share those. And I think it's okay to admit that this is a very emotionally up and down time, and to be okay that if you're sad, or you're, grieving the loss of things that you love to do, or grieving the loss of your favorite activity, or grieving the loss of a loved one, or, it's important to allow yourself that space and time to feel the things that you're feeling.
It's so important.
That's a lot.
Right. And as you guys are hearing some of this too, if there's particular strategies or methods, Katherine just listed so many good ones that really resonate with you. Maybe to kind of make a commitment to yourself, type it in the thread. Let us know which of these is one you can absolutely do. The routine, we got to talk with Dr. Kern a few weeks ago, and he said the very same thing about the importance of having routine, especially in a time when things are unsure and where each week looks a little different, where we don't know what the governor is going to say next about what we can and can't do for the next few weeks. So the things we can control, it's so important that we do. I also wanted to, the thing you said about self-care versus self-improvement, that's so true. I think a lot of us are feeling maybe it's an internal, maybe it's an external pressure that we need to utilize this time to and thrive through it, when I really think it's okay for there to be seasons of your life that you're just trying to survive it. You don't have to thrive every season. I mean, you look at a parent with a 3-month-old, they're not really trying to thrive at anything. They're just trying to get through it, right?
Surviving. That's right. Right.
And I think sometimes you need permission from somebody to say that's okay if you're in survival mode instead of thrive mode. For a lot of us, it's just trying to push through. We don't have to. This isn't the time for us to feel like we have to get a ton. Now, if you have the capacity to do it, that's awesome. Yeah. But if it overwhelms you, scale back. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's the hierarchy of need. What's your highest need? If you're,
it's good.
If you are like you thrive in productivity, and it feeds your soul, and it makes you get, just focus in on something other than what's going on in the big bad world out there, do that. But if you're somebody who needs to be told that today you can rest and you can curl up on the couch and you can sleep and rest, and that feels inviting to you and feels, it draws you in, then do that, and
That's
I think
great. Yeah.
If you have that luxury, I mean, a lot of people don't. A lot of people have to go to work and they have to, do all these things, but we all need to be told that it's okay to rest. And I need that. Like, I have to give credit to my older sister. She was the one who coined that self-care, not self-improvement, because I needed to hear it, because I thrive on productivity. I thrive on getting stuff done.
Yeah,
And
I do too.
I find that I can't right now. I'm feeling like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I this is time I should be, I'm not running around with my kids doing a million things. I should organize my attic, but I just don't have the energy to do it right now. And I have to practice self-compassion and remind myself, if I get out on the other side of this, then, in one piece and, with good relationships intact and healthy. I mean, we have so much to be thankful for. So it's important
I think
perspective.
A few weeks ago, I did a short little podcast just for the people in our church called, the episode was The Guilt of Not Doing Enough, because I just sensed in the past few weeks before recording that, how many people I talked to that just felt like they should be doing more. And it really almost came back to an identity issue that for a lot of us, we find so much identity in keeping ourselves busy and feeling like we are making a significant impact in other people's lives. And if those things are stripped away, it reveals in a very raw sense where we're finding fulfillment, and that this is a season, it is okay to have less on your plate, and it is okay to not be able to do as much as you might have been able to do a few months ago because of all of the emotional energy that is going towards what's going on.
And I think it gives you a new opportunity to learn more about yourself, and and more about, about just, the new things maybe, or, new ways, or just identifying maybe some of the areas in your life where you are doing too much. And this is an opportunity to step back and say, hey, what do I want to take out? What do I want to keep with me that I've learned during this time? What are some of the practices of rest and relaxation, or just, downtime? That's important.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm even seeing in the chat thread that I think a lot of us really, that is a big thing for us. That something I often say is nobody celebrates the Sabbath and nobody celebrates slowing down. Our culture celebrates busyness, celebrates accomplishment, celebrates when we're getting so much done in a short amount of time. So we have to fight against that. Let me ask a few more questions that I think could be very, very helpful. Again, maybe it's for somebody listening right now or somebody who has a loved one that they are keeping in mind through this conversation. If someone is struggling with depression or showing some of those early signs that you mentioned, what are just some helpful steps that they could take if it's for themselves or for a loved one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the first and foremost, most important thing is to tell someone, is to, let someone know if you're struggling with thoughts of, dark thoughts or thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or harm yourself in any way, or you're thinking, I can't get out of bed. I can't function, and it's been going on for more than, a couple of days. First and foremost, tell someone that you love and ask them to, help you get some help. And the thing is that there's a lot of help out there right now. There's a lot of places that actually aren't that busy. I mean, I have to tell you, things are picking up, but both from my medical practice and the a lot of people haven't been accessing care. And there's I'm finding that wait times to care actually are lower. And so there's a lot of therapists right now that are available, online, virtually, and hopefully soon even in person that are ready to help. And so I think.
Can I ask real quick, why is that? Because I've heard that from another friend of mine who's a nurse, that I think there's a perception from a lot of us that it's jam-packed and we don't want to go in. Is it because people are afraid of going out and the germs and the virus? Is that why?
I think that for sure. I think initially people were afraid to go out, and initially people were okay. There wasn't this huge, we didn't know what was going to happen. And I think people thought maybe this was going to end quickly. And so people didn't feel like they needed care. But as things have unfolded and the reality of this, we have to make adjustments that are more than just the very short term. people are needing to get some help through this time. And I think for a lot of us, the message, from the medical perspective, the message out there was stay home, stay home, stay home. So nobody was coming in for appointments. People they didn't know that they could do telehealth. They didn't know that their insurance would cover free visits, through telehealth, and that their copays would be waived and all that. So people were just didn't access it and didn't realize what was out there. And, for a lot of us in this field, we've been trained, and we're, this is where we kind of thrive to be ready to help people in times of need. But it's been pretty quiet and slow. And I think, emergency rooms and things like that, where people oftentimes go, if you're having a mental health crisis, you usually go to the emergency room, and nobody wants to go to the emergency room right now. For understandable reasons. So people, and that's the way a lot of people will initially access the mental health system, is to go in through the emergency room, and that's just not been happening. So I think there's just been a lot of lack of information that have prevented people from accessing care. But I think there's a lot of care to be received, and people that are available to help.
Okay. And so
that would be the first thing, is just to get help.
Yeah.
I think, staying connected to people we trust, like I said, and being honest, getting over the stigma. I don't think there shouldn't be any stigma right now about needing mental health care. I think we can all accept across the globe on every level that this is hard. And so please don't, be embarrassed or feel weak or feel ashamed, that you need help right now. And so I think we need to remove all stigma in terms of keeping people from getting the help. Other things, as we talked about before, things that people can do if they're struggling with depression. I think, we talked about a lot of those routine things and just some of the things that they can implement. But I think getting professional help, if you've reached the level where you're depressed, is the most important thing. Because if you're depressed and you're truly struggling with symptoms of depression, it's very hard to get out of bed. It's very hard to take a shower. It's very hard to exercise. It's very hard to eat healthy. It's very hard to do all the things that I listed if you're truly at a state of depression. And so when you're there, or when someone you love is showing signs of depression, and it's been going on for more than 2 weeks, I definitely would recommend getting professional help.
Right afterwards, that for those who might be, for lack of a better term, stubborn to admit that they need help, or afraid to ask for help, or maybe you're seeing something in them that you're concerned about, but they don't admit that it's there. They're in denial. And one of the things you shared that I think is so important is just getting over the stigma that counseling is only for a certain group of people and not for the rest of us. And it actually creates this false narrative that there's broken people and there's unbroken people. And the fact is, we're all broken, and everyone needs some form of counseling. In fact, I have a friend of mine that is a pastor in the South, and he actually makes it necessary and mandatory that every year everybody on his staff goes through one counseling session, just as a chance to sit across from somebody and just debrief. It's not just crisis mode. It's not just when we're feeling like we're completely broken, a complete mess. We all need someone to sit across from us and help us to mentally collect ourselves and help us to help get us back to a place of health. And sometimes having a neutral voice, sometimes having someone give you permission to do things that you feel bad doing is so important, right?
Yeah, I mean, I liken it to exercise. We all need to exercise, whether you're overweight, underweight, good, your BMI is healthy or not. Like, everybody needs to exercise because it's healthy. And so I kind of liken that to therapy and just getting counseling. For some people, counseling is a lifeline. It's the rescue. It's rescuing them. They're lifesavers. They need it. Can't live without it. And so that's one extreme, right, where you need that. Other people, counseling is really, it's fine tuning. It's understanding yourself better. It's observing. It's knowing yourself better and understanding why you think the way you think, or how you act, why you act the way you act, or how you might behave in relationships that that contribute to unhealthy relation. I mean, we all need it. I mean, we all benefit from it. And I think if we really want to be healthy people, having a person in our life that can pour into us to really know us and know us well in an intimate way and guide us it's valuable. It's really valuable.
Wow.
And so I always say the well is a place that, I created because I need it, right? I need it just as much as everyone. We all do.
Yeah.
We all need that support. And there shouldn't be any feelings like, oh, it's just for somebody who's, crazy or somebody who is, mentally ill. These words have a lot of negative connotations to them. But I mean, I think it's understandable right now if people are struggling with anxiety and depression that they need professional help. Get it.
That's right. Yeah. I love you're helping, I think, for some of us listening to just paint a new picture of counseling, that counseling isn't for unhealthy. It actually is it's for health. It's we all need it, and it should be a regular part of everybody's practice, whether it's going to a place like the well or having somebody in your life, like you said, that can sit across from you. You can be completely honest about the ways that you're feeling and the ways that you're struggling.
And I think family members, even in the best families, kids who tell me that they can talk, it's great if you have a person in your family that can talk to you and that, that can give good advice. But I think that's a different experience than sitting with someone who's been trained in therapy to really ask different types of questions and help you explore different areas of yourself. And so I think, it's a both and there.
That's good. I want to ask one more question, then I just want to give you a chance to share a little bit about the well. Some of the, you mentioned on the front end a little bit, but just wanted to give you a chance to share some of the services and if anybody needs help, how they can reach out. But before I do that, I just want to ask one more question. What is the best way for essential workers, or really even any workers, in the next few weeks, we're all going to be going back to work in some form or fashion, and yet the patterns might be very different than what they were in February, March. So what are some of the best ways, just in general, methods, procedures, strategies to just de-stress from the day?
Well, I mean, when you mention essential workers, I think, just backtracking a little bit, if someone listening, out there tonight has been an essential worker since the beginning, first of all, thank you. And, I hope that you've been able to receive the love and, admiration and respect from your community and from, people who you serve. I hope that you've received that, because I think that what people have been asked to do early on in this was heroic. And I think, a lot of people, their heroic deed was to stay home and isolate and stay away. And I think that was also, it's been super admirable in what we've been asked to do. And that's been hard. But for people who had to leave their house and go to work and work at, in the grocery stores and work at the hospitals and, go out of their homes, I think that it was scary. And I think a lot of people experienced facing fearful things day in. And a lot of my friends who are nurses in the hospital, were calling and just talking about how scary it was to be there and experience that kind of volume of just, chaos. And so I honor those people. And I also say what you've been through is traumatic and it's been really hard. And for a lot of people, they're going to need to process that trauma. And by trauma, I don't even mean just being in the hospitals. I think being around people, at the grocery store and being afraid, those levels of fear, I think are substantial. And so I would say if you've been an essential worker through this process, be kind to yourself and also understand that you may need to process what you've been through and to get some help, and don't minimize it at all. And I think, that by talking about it and getting some help early on, it's you're going to get through this and you're going to be fine. It's people who tend to hold it in and stuff it and try to forget how hard it was. That's where we see down the road it can lead to more mental health problems. So first and foremost, if you've been an essential worker all along, recognize that you've been through a lot. And as I mentioned, resting when you can. I think taking that time to rest is important. And so for people who are now being asked to leave their homes and start going back to work. This is where I think we're going to see a new level of mental health issues developing. And I've kind of seen it emerging over the last couple weeks with the kids that I see. A lot of the kids that I've taken care of during this time, a lot of them have felt very safe and protected and nurtured from staying home, and have been, and parents too. They've been allowed to just be very controlled in terms of who they come in contact with and their level of risk. And I think as we start to reopen, we're going to be confronted with things that start to feel more unsafe. And so I think we have to continually be, using good, taking the information that's available to us from people we respect, listening to guidelines, following guidelines, recognizing that, yes, there's always going to be some risk. But if you're doing the things that we have now learned are pretty clear in terms of good science, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart. These are things that over the last couple of months, we've actually learned do work. And so I think you have to follow those guidelines and reassure yourself that as you go out into the community or go back to work, that those things, those guidelines are true and helpful. And I know for me, like I wear PPE at work and I've been around people and exposed to COVID and I've been okay. And that reminds me that, if I do the right things, I will be okay. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that this is going to be anxiety provoking for a lot of people. And when we're feeling anxious, we act, we all kind of, our anxiety manifests differently. So if you're somebody, if you're feeling a lot of anxiety, or, your spouse or your kids or people have heightened anxiety, a lot of times it can be challenging. Their moods can be different. Their attitudes can be, irritable or things like that. So I think all that to say, I think we have to expect that as we reopen, this is going to trigger a lot of anxiety for people for different reasons. And we need to continue to do the things, as we've talked about, to care for ourselves and care for the people that we love. And, don't be judgmental. Try to be very accepting and understanding that this is, this next phase of this virus is also going to present challenges that may lead to more mental health issues.
Yeah. I think that while it's maybe the mental trick in all of this is as things start to open up, we want to tell ourselves that we're coming out of it, but we're just entering into a new phase of it. And this really is a marathon. And, we've persevered this far. And I think sometimes we need to pause and remember that the past 2 months for everybody, regardless of how this has been affected, really has been an exhausting time, but we made it through it. And for a lot of us, the past 2 months may have been the hardest 2 months, and it is just going to slowly get better, but it really is. It's going to take some time. And so let me just give you a chance to share a little bit about The Well and what your team does to help those who want to remain mentally healthy, maybe some of the offerings, especially that you're offering right now in this season, but then also things that you would offer if not for all of the bans.
Yeah, I think the thing that has been hardest for me during this time with The Well is that we are a community center and we really value the community part of what we do, which is, we have a very welcoming, inviting place to get mental health care. It's beautiful. And there's people there who are, offering all different types of services. So we miss that. And we're hoping that we can, and we're planning on developing ways that we can make it incredibly safe for people to return to The Well to get the services that we love to offer and we believe in. But just so people know, historically, The Well offers services, as I said, that address the needs of the mind, body, and spirit. So in terms of, just the mind, we have a number of therapists who work at The Well, who are currently available for online visits. And so, if people want therapy or they feel like they need professional help, like we talked about, they just call The Well and we get you hooked up with a therapist. And we have therapists who specialize in all different types of things, like trauma, stress, anxiety, depression, substance use, issues around violence, marriage issues, kids, services for kids. So we offer a whole variety of types of therapy. So that's available. We have services for kids to help kids who have, struggle with anxiety, depression, ADHD. There's been a lot that we haven't even really talked about kids so much tonight, but a lot there's just many levels of the way this has affected kids. And, the education changes and things like that have been challenging. So our therapists have been very helpful in working with kids and families. So traditional kind of therapy. And then on top of that, we traditionally offer things like massage and yoga. We haven't been able to offer those things. We do have meditation classes. And so Deb Bellevue, who's our spiritual director, one of our spiritual directors, she's been offering Zoom meditation on Saturdays, which I have been participating in, and it's lovely. You find a quiet place in your house and you log in, and she guides you through a real contemplative time of just self-reflection and prayer or meditation. And it can be really helpful, I think, in terms of grounding people and helping people to learn how to relax and just recover from a really hard week. So that's available. People can sign up for that online. And then we offer at the Well, we offer a whole variety of spiritual care practices. Like I mentioned before, we really believe that people are physical, emotional, and spiritual beings, and they all affect each one affects the other. So when someone's physically unwell, it can affect their emotional selves. When people are spiritually unhealthy, it can affect the way we think and the way we act. So we have spiritual care, we spiritual directors at the Well, and who offer something called spiritual direction, which is similar to therapy in the format, meaning there's a caregiver who provides it, but the focus is a little bit more on questions of spirituality, connecting with faith and God and prayer, and questions of our identity and who we believe we are and how that affects the way we think. And so it's really taking more of a spiritual focus to our overall health. And those spiritual directors are also providing online services during this time. So if people are interested or feel like they need services, I encourage them to call the Well. They'll probably talk to Kylie, who is our administrative coordinator, and she will connect them with one of the providers depending on what kind of services they need.
Okay.
We're not, just to clarify, we're not a crisis center. And this is important, if you have somebody in your life who is in crisis, meaning you feel like they are unsafe at that point in time to hurt themselves or hurt someone else, the best thing you can do is get them to an emergency room. Emergency rooms are still seeing people of all kinds of needs right now. And so they have therapists, crisis counselors, psychiatrists, and that's important to start there if people are in crisis.
That's good. Yeah, and I might even ask one of our hosts that's interacting a little bit more with the chat thread to put in the link to the Well so that they could just click on it right after this if they want to learn a little bit more about the nonprofit that you lead.
And quickly just to mention is if you go to our website right now, we have a resource page, and every day one of our therapists, most of them are put up there by our art therapists. There's lots of resources for every day of things that you can do right now to help you. There's art therapy, there's, meditation, mindfulness, all these activities that if that feels inviting to you, definitely access it. And then we also have a link if you need prayer, you want someone to pray for you, you can also link on that and we will do that.
That's awesome. Hey, I don't know if I told you this, but since the quarantines began, my wife and I have been doing yoga at home, which I've never done in my life. And we've loved it. We're doing it.
That's
we do
good.
it like either in the morning. Usually we do it before we go to bed and it kind of calms us down. But I'm loving it. It's been awesome. And I realize how flexible I am. But it's awesome.
It's good. It's relaxing. It's good. Yeah.
It is.
Great.
And I resonate with what you said about the Well's dream of being really a community center. I mean, we see that, as you know, my wife Katie leads and manages the Bridge Coffee House in West Bridgewater. And that was our dream, is when we were able to open Grace Church here, that it wasn't just a place that had services on Sundays and Bible studies and things like that, but it really was a space that every day of the week people could come and gather. And we look forward to the day, hopefully in the next few weeks, that it can be that again. Hey, as we are wrapping up here, if there's one particular thing that Katherine said that really resonated with you, or an action step that you're going to commit to take, just throw it in the chat thread, whether you're watching live or later. We always like to know, what were some of the things that really resonated with you? Our goal in this is to offer just free, really good, sharp content from some of the experts in the field to just help you navigate through this time. Thank you so much, Katherine, for being here. I'll say this because I know that this is a hard thing for her to say, but the well really is run on, like, very much on donations. Our church is one that tries to do our best to help them and to be generous towards them. There's a ton of individuals. If just hearing this, if this is something you're particularly passionate about and you want to donate, the well really is a fantastic opportunity and nonprofit that helps a ton of people. And it's because of your donations, it's able to help more people, some people that might not normally be able to afford that kind of service. Katherine, I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for being a part of this, for all that you do to encourage through your team, to encourage and to speak into the lives of hundreds and even thousands of people in the South Shore. If you're listening in live or if you're listening in later, just remember, like, you've been through a lot. We all have, but we're getting through it together. And if you need help, tell somebody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to be having webinars every single Wednesday for the next few weeks. Next week, we are going to be having, on May the 27th, we're going to be having one on parenting, and we're bringing in an expert in the field that has written a few books on parenting, and it'll be a really neat experience. So make sure that you're part of that. If you just want more information, it's thatsgrace.org/webinars. The link will be in the chat thread for you. Katherine, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this with us.
It was fun to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next one.